So we have a hearing, the scenic road bylaw.
Recuse myself, Jonathan.
Okay. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 15C, Scenic Road Bylaw, Scenic Road Law, and Section 250-24 of the Bolton Zoning Bylaws, Scenic Roads, notice is hereby given that the Bolton Planning Board is holding a public hearing on Wednesday, September 10th, 2014 at 7:30 in the Board of Selectmen Room, Town Hall, 663 Main Street, Bolton, Massachusetts, to hear and act upon the application of Timothy Murphy, 369 Old Bay Road, Bolton, Mass. 01740 regarding the proposed removal of a portion of stone wall and cutting of trees required to construct a driveway for property located on Wilder Road, identified by the assessor's map as 5.B parcel 1. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11. Oh, that's the next hearing, sorry. It's full stop.
So just one thing, Eric Neiland isn't here, so in order to get a majority vote on this, we would need to have James act as a board member. So if you could just have him join the board to make that determination, we can move forward with the hearing.
Okay.
Since Eric's not here.
So is that the motion, or?
I'll make a motion to have James officially join the board as a voting member for this hearing.
I second that.
Just one question before you vote.
Yes.
Can I be a full member? Are we making me a full voting member because as a appointed non-US citizen am I eligible?
I believe as an associate member,
Yes.
that's the whole purpose. So.
Okay.
Since this isn't a special permit hearing, we don't need 4 out of 5.
We just
Simple
need a majority.
3 out of 5 should do.
So I second that motion. All in favor, say aye. Eric is here. Great time.
What's going on with you around, James?
Yeah. We're just having James become a full voting member.
An opportunity.
No, you can still vote, it's just now we don't need him to.
So,
I thought this one.
so is Timothy Murphy here?
I'm here for Tim Murphy. I'm Scott Hayes, Foresight Engineering. I put together the driveway plan and I'm representing Tim. He's out of town today, so.
So you want to come forward and go over the plan with us?
Should I just?
Just come sit up here.
brought my
Forward, okay.
easel. I didn't know I would like to do that presented, so. Yeah, I'm Scott Hayes, Foresight Engineering in Stowe. I'm a registered civil engineer, and I've put together this driveway plan for Mr. Tim Murphy. This is a 6.3 acre lot on the south side of Wilder Road. It's just past the Davis Farm Orchard. The stone wall is the boundary of the Davis Farm Orchard. And this is all pretty much wooded land up to the next house lot. It's about 800 feet of frontage up to the Mecklen's property, so on the corner of Old Bay and Wilder. It's a pretty large tract. We've been in here to test it for a single-family house and had a good result there. So we've gone forward with putting together a driveway plan to get access in. The site distance is pretty good where we want to come in. There's a break in the stone wall, an existing break in the stone wall. And it's not quite adequate enough to get the shoulder cuts we need to get in, so we need to remove some of the stone wall along the edge of the sideline of the road and do some cutting. We've got a 16-inch hardwood and 18-inch hardwood that need to come down to accommodate the grading, and we're proposing to utilize the portions of the stone wall we're taking down to build a small retaining wall on this side to help limit the grading and preserve this 24-inch tree and this 30-inch tree a little further to the west.
Can you just tell me, I drove by earlier, where exactly on the plot is this?
This, if you're coming from 117.
Yeah, show us on this.
Here.
Yeah.
This indicates where the driveway cut is.
So there's like a group of mailboxes, is that right? I saw like,
It's past that.
okay.
Pictures.
I brought some more photos too.
There was a for sale sign,
Okay.
but it's just before that for sale.
Oh, that for sale sign? Okay, I saw that one, yeah. I saw there was a bunch, there were markers behind the mailboxes too, I wasn't sure what those were for.
This is, while the road's a pretty deep cut right
Yeah.
there, about 6-8 feet.
Yeah.
Pretty much for a few hundred feet of road. So there's a good cut from the grade going uphill.
Yeah, I saw, okay.
And the stone wall is on the top of that cut. So there's a little bit of grading to do to get in there. But I've got a driveway graded in at 5% for 30 feet, then creeping to 10%. Or we catch up at about 70 feet in. It's just the cut is really limited to here, and then the grade is much more gentle once you actually get up there, sort of plateaus and kind of slowly rises. Very beautiful lot.
So, so this is not a shared driveway, this is a single?
This is a single family house driveway, yeah.
Okay.
So I took some pictures just so you can see what the shoulder of the road looked like. I don't know if the board get out there to look at it or not. Also, I took pictures east and west so you can see what the sight lines were like, you know, the gutter. Which they're pretty good. I mean, people drive pretty fast on Wilder Road. What else have we got? Oh, we've also got some drainage proposed. The trap rock trench just on the downgrade side in the shoulder of the road. Really, it's just going to catch this first 70 feet where the drive is relatively steep, and make sure it stays in the shoulder of the road, gets infiltrated, and poured out of the road. Once you get past this, about this point, I mean, the drainage really isn't directly at the street, and the grade is much gentler. So, thought it was warranted to do some mitigation just because of the steep grade and the cut that's going in there.
So, who else reviews driveways? It's
DPW, basically all the departments need to sign off on the
Okay.
driveway application, so.
and so it's coming to us first this time?
Exactly, yeah, for the scenic road portion of it,
Okay.
and then he'll submit an application for the driveway, and then it'll get reviewed by all the departments.
And so, you know, it's just a, very broad question, but so in terms of this frontage, which looks like it's,
No, it's not listed, but I think he's got about 600 or 700 feet of frontage.
yeah, so why here?
This is the best access point for this portion of the property. He's contemplating dividing this into some A&R lots in the future.
Yeah, because further down, it doesn't have this steep embankment.
Right.
That's why I thought it was,
Yeah.
it's like 6 mailboxes for the shared driveway across the street. That's why I thought it was gonna be, because I saw,
It's pretty steep to about here, and then
Right.
and then it starts to taper.
right, exactly.
What he'd like to do ultimately is to divide this into 2 frontage lots on Wilder Road. Right at this point, he's only proposing to develop this lot, and this is how he wants to access it. In the future, we'll be back likely for another hearing for another driveway. But that's the extent of the development plans on Wilder Road. It's just these one, possibly second.
So does this land go down on the other side of this embankment?
It continues to rise, but much gentler. Once you get to the wall, it's
Yeah.
probably about a 3 to 5% clip, and it's just a nice gentle kind of knoll.
So when you cut the driveway, is like, how deep into this do you have to cut down? Is it gonna be lined, come in?
No, well, the actual cut is probably a good 20 feet off the pavement. So, we've got the edge of pavement of Wilder here, and the cutting really starts about 20 feet in. And the worst point is probably right around where the stone wall is. We've got the existing 200, and we're cutting to 196. It's about a 4-foot cut there. 2-foot cut here, less than 2, within 20 feet of the pavement. So there's enough of a shoulder before the bank really rises. We're able to get, 5% for 30 feet, which is pretty good for a driveway. And you won't be obscured by the cut, like looking down the road. It should be safe.
So is some work going on this lot already? Because I've noticed there's a dirt road off of Old Bay.
Right.
Is that
Right.
the access point?
That's part of Mr. Murphy owns the farmhouse at 369 Old Bay.
Yeah.
And that's the historic access point to that tract of land right along the boundary with Mecklen.
Yeah. So what's going on back there?
He's got tree clear areas in there. He's done some tree removal up here. We've dug test holes for septic, and that's about it. It hasn't been stumped. Just some tree removal to open up the area where the house site's going to go.
Right. So for me, I'd like to see the whole proposal. What's going to happen here? It seems like it's kind of getting piecemealed. So,
well, he'd like to get access to the property from the property's frontage and not access it through his own property.
Right. It's just what's if there's going to be 2 lots or 3 lots, and how many curb cuts are you going to be making along here? So you're asking us to look at one without knowing what else is going to go on.
At this point, he doesn't have any immediate plans to develop the land other than for one single-family house lot, and that's his intent that he's conveyed to me. So,
so this could be 1 lot, or it could be 2, or it could be 3.
It has enough frontage and area to be 3, possibly 3. Certainly.
So if we approve this as a single driveway, he'd have to come back if he wanted it to be a shared driveway for approval.
Based on your view of the land, could that become a shared driveway? A single entrance? Or not really?
I don't think it really lends itself to it. The grade here is kind of rising this way. This cut is angling toward the perimeter wall, so this would be a good approach to the house site further up here. We've got septic testing here, so there'll be a sewage disposal system in this area and some grading.
So then you'd have to drive over that as well.
Well, you'd have to drive either over it or by it, and then you're getting a driveway that's shared that's going to be close to where a house that would otherwise be private. I don't think that's what he wants to do.
What other land does he own?
He owns, this is the tract in question right here, and he owns this house here.
And so the access road that I'm seeing on Old Bay is like right about there.
Right. It's right up that line right there.
So this is the whole 6.3 acres.
Right, and it does include a bit of frontage on Old Bay as well. I think there's about 100 feet there.
So what is this length here?
Don't know off the top of my head. It's I believe around 700. I think I have the recorded plan. I can take a look.
While you're doing that, any other comments from the board? Martha, do you have a report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here representing the Historical Commission, which is a co-scenic roads overseer. I guess the first question has been answered. I wanted to know if this is going to be the construction entrance for the building, everything, where Connewood might be wider. And I don't think it's appropriate to use stones from the wall for a retaining wall. Those should be worked into the wall that's left for corner things and have some other less historically significant stones used for retaining wall or something, unless it's going to be right at the front.
It's right along the frontage, I can show you the plan. It's really,
But would it go back
it's going to
in?
be taking the wall that's sort of up on the top of the embankment and using the stones to kind of continue that wall along the side of the driveway a little bit closer
Of the
towards the
home.
street.
Okay,
No,
so they
toward
wouldn't
the
be
road, so
submerged, they would be showing.
They would be exposed, yeah. Yeah, and
Thank you.
it's not a tremendous wall, it's only about 3 feet tall, anything higher than that.
It was probably for dairy farms instead of sheep
Yeah.
farms.
And the wall it's not in great shape in some spots. I mean, you could certainly take the sections of the wall stone that we're taking out and just utilize it to rebuild the portions of the wall that are degraded. I mean, and we could bring in other stones to fill that wall for the retainage. I just figured we would use it because it was available and it'll maintain the aesthetic of that stone wall, from where it exists now, just sort of relocating it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Audience?
I'm finding every other plan that I'm looking for.
I also have a scale if you just want to scale it off as well.
Yeah, what is
I
the
know I
scale?
have it. I think
Why
it's
don't you
20.
choose 20?
20?
I think it's about 700 feet.
580 somewhere? I'm getting 580, we'll double check that.
This is 256 this way. According to that.
Yeah, so
It's degrees, it's not distance.
I found this down here today.
You can see anything from here to here. No signals.
Yeah, that probably represents from here to here, just on the side of scaling it.
I don't even see a curve in it.
It's 240 roughly. 243. Plus 330, 540. Actually, I'm getting it closer to 600, but
Okay, I had about 580. That's,
That
that's
sounds about
it.
right.
Yeah.
That's if this is to scale.
It is to scale. Yeah.
Okay.
Boy, I can't find that one plan. There's a plan of land of that track.
So is that unusual, granting a curb cut before there's any subdivision or?
I think it's fine. I mean, he has the right to come and request a curb cut.
And if it is divided, these would be approval not required lots, straight frontage area, so that would be the plan if he does do it. I know he intends to develop this house lot, and possibly divide it into one more lot.
Okay. Great, so we need to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And now we vote to approve the driveway.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for the scenic, cutting the driveway in through the stone wall on the scenic road. Wild Road.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
What's that?
Anticipation that the board would likely grant approval. I have the decision here.
Eric, I'm Scott.
Oh, yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I'll introduce myself. We haven't met, far away.
Right, right.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Everybody know.
Yeah.
Spot for the chairman.
To recuse yourself? Did you have to recuse yourself?
Just 2 minutes later.
Very close to the pipe. No, definitely not.
Just all over recuses. He doesn't accuse himself in a while.
Yeah, well, later today, that 20th century will stay again.
We want to know how you really feel. Okay, so we have a continuation of our hearing related to Bolton Office Park and Combine Capital Partners and their proposal for an assisted living facility at 580 Main Street. So we have engineer
Again,
Mark Diggs.
Mark Dibb with
Diggs,
Condyne Engineering Group. I'm gonna be doing quite a bit of discussion on the board. Should I
Yes,
set it up
so
against that wall maybe?
you could do that, or right
In the
there.
back.
It's wherever you're most comfortable.
I
Is
think over there would be
Okay.
better for our studio audience.
James, gonna move over, James. Mark's gonna do some sketches to show everybody kind of two ideas related to parking. So, before this meeting, David, Eric, and I met with Mark on site and walked around Bolton Manor, looked at the parking. We also looked at the access to the community garden and the lacrosse field, as well as the back road to the schools. And we kind of looked at the footprint of the new proposed assisted living facility where it's going to be. And so we discussed kind of two ideas related to parking. And Mark can sketch those out at any point.
Is your name Dick or David?
Dibb, D-I-B-B.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
This is just the same thing that's up there, just a piece of it.
So this hasn't changed from our the last time we met?
The only thing that has changed is the detail regarding the manor is added on to the.
Oh, okay, so you added that for context, that's great.
Yeah. So what we're looking at is, in order to replace some of this parking that's lost up in this area here, is coming up with ideas to potentially share parking or just provide more parking for the manor use, preferably shared in our case, but just looking at options to replace some of that parking that's lost. One thing we noticed out in the field. This is the parking that's being reduced. One option is to just provide better pedestrian access throughout the site, potentially a walkway through this area, continuing out, that would tie this proposed parking, and then again, something to get through to that facility, as well as potentially this parking lot is actually as close to the front door, or even closer than that existing parking. This is directly adjacent from the walkway. Potentially you would have to cross the driveway, but we could provide the appropriate pedestrian controls and warnings for that, as well as a sidewalk again through that area. That was one option we looked at, and potentially even we'd be interested. One thing with the office building, there's a lot of parking in back to service this portion of the building. There's not much parking for this entire, so we're also interested in this parking. Potentially even more as well, if it's a good use for both communities of both buildings. The other option we're looking at is more directed just to give the manor some parking, a little less preferred on our side, but there is some area just directly off this drive aisle for between 10 or 15 parking spaces. There is some grading, change in grade there, but there's plenty of area to make up that grade in there. As far as just other items on the manor, this existing lot cannot be expanded. There's the fire pump house, and I believe it's probably the tank associated with that off the end of that pavement. As well, this way there's a dumpster area, generators in this spot. There's a drainage basin that's servicing the catch basin out in the road here. You know, so there's no possible expansion on the town land itself. So as far as to provide more parking that the manor can share or use with the office building, those are kind of two options. I think 10 to 15 spaces there's only 30 or so on the site. You know, that's a pretty good increase, you know, if it was this scenario along this parking. But also if people are using this now as overflow, this, you know, especially on weekends and nights when it's empty. Okay, so it's used during business hours, pretty much. So
It's
maybe,
basically 10 to 2 during the day.
that being said, probably either even additional spaces out here, or this would be the better option. I think what this would need is, it would be onto this property. You can't fit it onto the manor property by itself, so an easement or just some kind of use agreement between the two properties.
There is a bank there.
Yes.
How do you address the parking in the bank?
You would just you basically just bring it out, and then instead of the bank coming off the existing parking, it would just come off farther out, and there's plenty of space there to make that change work.
I guess we'll be kind of casual about this and just want to raise your hand. Unless the board members have anything they want to say first. I think we can just go to getting feedback from the audience. Sure. Identify yourself.
Terry Abdalian, Bond Hill Road, and co-president of Friends of Bolton Seniors. Do you have you said the distances between for each of the shared spaces were about the same. Do you happen to know how many feet that is?
From the spaces right here, this row closest, it was about 250 feet to the entrance.
Okay.
And from this corner of this parking was about 200 feet.
And is that the new parking that you're putting in?
Yes, this
Okay.
this is the new parking lot.
Okay. And on the other side of that entrance into the manor, you were talking about just to the left side of the entrance. On the right, is there any capability of putting some more spaces over there?
There may be some room for some spaces here as well.
Because that would be of interest too, because 10 is a little tight. First of all, I want to thank you, both the planning board and Condyne, for putting this up on the top of, of what you addressed. I mean, we really appreciate it, and that was what we were trying to direct with our note to you, was that we feel that this is something that we can do together as a town, as a community, as a business, as people interested in seniors, so we thank you very much for that. But I think 10 is a little tight, right, when we were talking about the number of spaces. So if we can, also look on the other side.
So there was some bit of mechanical there right at the corner. I forget what it was. Maybe it was electrical.
On the right.
On the right
Yeah,
side.
you can see there's some
There-
signs and there's definitely a light pole. But we can,
It looked like there was room for like 3 or 4 at the most. That's not as expensive.
Terry, do you know how many parking spots or spaces you are ideally looking for?
Well, I know the Council on Aging talked about it too. So right now, there's visitor parking. May I get up? And, the visitor parking is right here. So there's about 5 spaces on either side. So you've already got about 10. When you have, and that's pretty much it's pretty much full on any day that the senior center is open, Tuesdays and Thursdays for sure. When we have a Tuesday Connections, I think we were looking for 15 spaces. And for some people, that, 200, and people have been making it work, the 250 foot, but for a lot of folks, that's just too far to go. I like better, actually, this. I like this the best, but this, because it's not so up a hill, and, it just seems to me much more direct if that's the potential.
So how are people getting from that lot? That's
2 ways.
Are they just walking up the bank?
They can
like
walk
through
up the
grass?
bank, or they have to walk all the way. So people that can't walk on the bank, or if it's snow,
Mhm.
they have to walk all the way around here. So it's quite a distance. That's why that direct route is, I think, much better.
under either scenario, a walkway, from this point to here, will be incorporated.
Okay, because that would be very good to be coming from the assisted living, who presumably folks there might be using some of the activities at the senior center and vice versa. And also it'd be nice for walkways, because I think, right now people are walking on the roadway, and that's not safe.
Yes.
Annie Gerken, the Council on Aging. On the ones that you're putting along here, how would, let's say you get out of your car, right now we know there's a bank there. Some of us climb up over the bank.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how would someone who doesn't climb banks get up into here? Would they down a path walk into the driveway and up, or?
Ramp.
Under this parking scenario?
Yeah, under that part.
These will be right at grade. You'll just get out of your car and go straight across.
Oh, all right. So you're gonna raise the grade?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
There is that, it looks, we believe it's an old curb cut, or on the lower level.
At the lower
You can
level.
fit 1 or 2 cars.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
exactly.
We're actually, I think we propose to actually remove that.
Yeah.
That is entirely on the Conrad property. And especially if we add the spaces here, we'll need that for grading. But I think it's just, that's not a safe one. That if you park there, you have to pull you have to back out into the drive aisle, the
So they're
entire park.
expanding, so in effect, you're expanding the existing parking
Yeah.
lot out.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
very efficient way. Right
Yeah,
now, there's
yeah.
only parking on one side.
On one side, right.
Put 'em
and
right
it's
there.
fire, yeah.
The width of the driveway is sufficient. And,
Yeah.
Would you get your 15 up here, or could they also have this so that if there's any overflow that they could go to here? Could they have access to there?
we can look at, like I said, definitely this walkway.
Yeah.
There's got to be some way to tie the two safely together with a
Mhm.
walkway. If we provided these, we can take a look at this one as well.
We can get a better, maybe talk about it a little bit more and get a better estimate for you on what the ideal, because you don't want to keep it at 10, because as activities grow in the senior center, they're adding an activity coordinator, and there's going to be more going on, to limit it to just the minimum. So I think maybe we should
But
get,
I think 15 is a good number with the idea if there's some potential to
Overflow,
use
yeah.
this for overflow, that would be.
At our last meeting, I was getting the impression that most of the people in that front building would probably end up switching to that parking lot, so.
you have the space is what you're asking.
Yeah, that during,
There might not be spots during the week, based on what you were saying.
correct.
People
During-
might move their car from way back there to,
We already have a need for that
Mm.
parking.
yeah.
And it's, well, this piece is I think it's like 60 or 70% full, and we already have a need for that parking. So that is a good
So-
point. If you
I'm just saying, it might not, the spots might not be there.
So this is more likely to be the area that there would be spots for
yes,
overflow, which is what people usually
And
know.
in all reality, it's only for those right now, for those 4 hours, maybe 3 times a week. It's not a massive, not a
Yeah.
ton.
But if they're already in at 9, you don't have the spaces, but. Thank you.
maybe the preferred thing for everybody
Yeah.
is these spots
And then
with
you,
the access to here.
Yeah.
You know, this may not, it might actually be a bad idea.
yeah, if the expectation were there and
You could
not
have,
available.
you could have people trying to get here, pulling in here,
Yeah.
10 o'clock on a Monday morning, it
Yeah.
could be full and you
Yeah.
gotta loop
Could always
around, come back out.
Steal people's spots at lunchtime.
Run them down with it. That's why they go out for lunch, don't do that.
Seniors will steal your spot.
But I think that effort would be greatly appreciated
Oh,
on the part of the senior center.
Really appreciate it. Waiting until it's ready.
Are there any other comments from the audience?
Just
You want to talk
There.
about mobility?
sure. Mary Chumo, Mobility Public Way Safety Committee. And we weren't able to attend the first session of this public hearing, but what we did do was we sent a memo to the town planner, and I believe that has been forwarded to Condyne, listing what we recommend for mobility within the development. And the whole purpose is for the tenants and the residents to be able to have access by foot to amenities in the area. There'll be a bank opening up on that side of the road very shortly. There is the salt boxes in development, and we'll probably have a number of retail businesses in there that they may want to be able to get to. Also, the whole back area for walking. I know I have seen many tenants from the office park walking back there during their lunch hours. So we just want them to have safe access and connections to all of these from the development. So that would be a safe walkway out to the existing sidewalk along Main Street, as well as putting in a frontage sidewalk in front of the Bolton Office Park. And hopefully Clinton Savings Bank can put a walkway, and if we can work with the town, we can then connect so that there will be full access from either direction. Eastbound to the salt box, there's already an existing sidewalk. I'm sorry, westbound. Eastbound to the savings bank, and if they want to go to the vet. And also, there is a building at the corner that will someday be retail.
So what we're looking at, and so I think we'll look at the opportunity to continue this. There are light poles on it. We prefer the walkway to be on the side of those light poles, so we could create, just a walk. It doesn't have to be on the driveway or anything like that. There's existing here, but there isn't here. This is the field, so I believe this is the bank lot, right? Correct, the field stays, and the bank is next to the field? Okay, so we can only go to here, so we can take a look at that piece as well. I think that's the piece you're talking about. I don't know how this spot, this is the fields right here, so I'm not sure how that would get connected.
Who owns the field?
Well, it's the town, so, I think what's been proposed is that the Board of Selectmen agree, approve allowing a sidewalk to be built, and I think one of the proposals is that Bolton Office Park work with Clinton Savings Bank to bridge that gap.
Sounds like a reasonable request to the selectmen.
is more for Jeff on you and Jeff on the else to consider and talk to your partners on the
Yeah.
other side.
Yeah,
But
it's only a
we
walkway.
think it's good for, for you and the people who work at Bolton Office Park and in the assisted living facility, and it's good for the bank, and it's good for people, everybody who lives
It's a win-win for
there.
everybody.
I mean, I see this adorable couple that sits out at the end of Bolton Office Park in their wheelchairs, and I wave to them, and they're incredibly brave. They go out off the sidewalk, which is, it's a little scary, but, so it's just trying to, make it easier for them to move around, on a safe surface. I think that would be great.
Would be very good PR for condo.
Have you seen them, Mark? Have you seen that couple?
No, I have not. I believe you.
I don't think they're a couple.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, it's a couple of people, it is a man and a woman, I don't think they're romantic. They're just out there
But you
watching
may have
the
started
cars go
something,
by.
Jonathan.
Yeah. It's,
But they want to be independent. I
yeah,
mean, they come up to my house and go beyond it, so.
yeah, it's great.
And that's the whole point behind an assisted living, to give people as much independence as they can have.
Well, there's a lot of opportunity here, because there's the community garden, there's the sports field. We were out there tonight, and there were people on bikes kind of doing this circle on the back roads there, and then somebody drove through with his dogs and let them out to run. So there's an
lot of
active
use.
recreation, and it would be great if everybody's interacting with each other there.
Yeah, that loop will be maintained, as
If we
well
could
as
show.
access to it right off the end. It'll be more than adequate access to those areas, and then these blue lines are also the loops that come around. This one isn't so much used, well, I don't believe it is, because it's relatively grassed and
It
I'm not
used to be
even-
used a lot.
yeah, I'm not sure if you can even make it, we didn't walk back here, but
You can
looks
do it,
pretty overgrown.
fairly high, not a sports car, but
So-
It hasn't been
so all
used since
that-
the fair
That will
left.
be maintained, and then as far as the users, there's also these a walking path with
Nice.
sitting areas and stuff out behind them.
Mary? and then-
Just one more thing is that we prefer sort of meandering walkways so that for the frontage, it doesn't have to be flush. It's safer, actually, if it's further removed from the roadway. So you've got a lot of, leeway with where you want to put that walkway.
I think that's what the one from the buildings out wants to do.
Yeah, and, I would reiterate that, like, our sidewalks are pretty mean. They're right next to the curb, and so it'd be nice to have some type of mow strip and separation along Main Street for this part of the sidewalk.
Yeah, either side you go, there's either trees or light poles, so it wants to have a
Yeah.
small.
we'd prefer you not to duplicate what Bolton has done in the
Yeah,
past.
sir.
Jerry Wilson, Deputy Chief, Bolton Fire. 2 points, one being your walking path from the salt box to 600 Main is non-ADA compliant, so that's why it's a walking path. The other is the sports field, if I may, excuse me. We have an issue right now with this drive going next to the sports field, being very heavily populated during those activities, and our access to the fire pond, which is over here, which is not on this plan. It's right about there, constantly being parked with lots of vehicles, a dozen at a time. If you're proposing a sidewalk through there and now parking along that road, which may or may not be town land, it may be the Clinton Savings Bank part. I don't know where the property line on that dirt path is. You'll have to take in consideration everybody that parks along 117 now, getting them off the roadway, because now they're gonna be on top of a sidewalk.
So that is an issue. It's probably an issue that involves
Parks and Rec. Are those
Parks and Rec.
Those mostly weekends, games or nights?
Evenings.
Evenings.
Every day of the week.
So that's lacrosse, but there's also the field back, in the back by the community garden. So anybody know anybody on the lacrosse families?
You shouldn't be having trouble finding somebody who's running the lacrosse program and everything.
So what, sir, what is your issue?
The new one? In what way?
The curb cuts are not correct.
With some sort of just chain or something that the fire department can access?
I'm sorry?
Some sort of chain or
We-
something that
we,
the fire department can access easily?
It is the property belonging to 580 Main, who has allowed us to access it. And again, it is a fire pond
Yeah.
with their permission. We have not chained it up until this point. It's been recently, the last 9 to 12 months, that it's become an issue with parking in front of our dry hydrant.
Is it the bank proposal that's seeking to share the fire pond?
Yes, the bank is looking to share the fire pond, that's correct.
And that fire pond hasn't been dug out. I mean, do you think if you screwed your pipe into that, you'd get water or mud?
There's approximately 1 million gallons of water in that pond that was designed for 580 Main Street. It was non-existent prior to 580 Main. It has never been dredged, to my knowledge. We have yet to have an issue with it, but without getting a diver into the pond and actually locating the pipe, it's an unknown.
You've used it and tested it? though.
Oh, we use it quite often, yes. Yes.
We'll reach out to Parks and Recreation, ask them about how they're using the two fields.
Sure.
That's be nice to hear from some of them. Have you talked to them?
No, we have not.
Represented from that
We
group?
have not. It's been primarily a lot of visiting players' families utilizing that space because it's nice and close.
Yeah.
So it changes weekly or nightly sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah, Schnitzler, Bolton Independent. So is this issue that you just brought up, is an issue regardless of the assisted
That's
living
correct.
facility?
That's correct.
Okay, but you're bringing it up now because with the sidewalk?
With the sidewalk, you're gonna have
Come in.
cars parked on where they now park along the road, it's gonna be parking
Okay.
on the sidewalk.
This is an issue that's sort of come up in the last year or so?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The sidewalk was back away from the road meandering. I think it would be less apt to be parked on.
There is a fence up, if you look. There's kind of a very,
Yeah.
kind of temporary
right?
fence.
Again, people, I simply go to Lancaster on any Saturday and Sunday. They have hundreds of no parking signs along Route 70. And just take a look. Forest Mill Road, our soccer fields. Drive down there any evening, half dozen cars parked along the no parking signs. It's laziness is what it is.
What's your concern?
So-
That with the creation of a sidewalk?
With the
across
creation of
it's
the
a
sidewalk, you're not only you're gonna lose the spaces you have now, and it's gonna multiply the illegal parking that we're having in that one space and along your building and your existing or your new future parking lot. Because people will, if they can't park on the sidewalk, they will find a space and it will take up more of the parking you're trying to create for the senior center, for the new building, for the office building. So it's multiplying an existing issue is what's gonna happen.
If I remember correctly, there's a good amount of space between the road and where the field is. I don't know if there's any chance of putting some pull-off parking there, like at an angle or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. I'm just trying to think of how much space there is between the two, the
Yeah.
field and the road.
I guess we'll just have to talk to Parks and Recreation about, I just don't know the history of that field.
It's a really tough place for a field. It always has been.
Yeah.
Ever since it went in, it's a really tough spot.
To answer your question, there's basically a car's length, or car's width between the roadway and the fence.
So that's where the fence is, with the field goes right up to there?
We contacted him.
Like, I remember the
If the
goal.
sidewalk comes in and meanders here,
You're taking a field, that's your athletic field.
But the nets don't go right to the road, they're
No.
like up here.
No, they have a safety area, absolutely, but
But I'm saying in that safety area, you could probably cut out 10 feet or so and put in cars.
real parking.
Real
space.
parking, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, it's a conversation with Parks and
Yeah,
Rec.
yeah.
I mean, I think a sidewalk needs to go in for mobility issues that we've all talked about.
I mean, if you,
So, one more?
One of the items in the letter that came from Council on Aging was to make sure that we had access to the road, to the private way during construction, and that somehow was secured. Because right now, I guess it's not.
So just during construction, that you have access from the entrance of Main Street to the manor? Are you talking about some other access to the town land in the back?
Well, I think what was behind it is right now there is, period, no guaranteed access to that road. When the manor was developed, at least from the history I've been told, there
Oh.
was no permanent guaranteed access. So there's concern among the board that that be just stated. And then also during construction, that there not be any problems with seniors getting to and from the manor.
Between the manor and Main Street, or the manor and...
And the parking.
And the Main Street.
Okay. Can you address that,
And
Mark?
the main limit of work has always been proposed right here, which is, beyond the manor entrance.
Okay.
So, we're not proposing any interruption to access to the manor. If these spots were built, there'd be a little construction time, but, we'd maintain access to that. I think, is the rest of your comment about access to the back?
No, it was
Okay.
just really
Just to there, yes.
exclusively to the quote-unquote business of the manor.
Okay, yep, so that'll be maintained. We are, just another note, we are gonna try to, this treed island continues another section. The current proposal is reducing that driveway down. We're gonna try to continue that island out at least 3, 4, 5 trees even. The majority of that.
I walked back there, and it's really nice. And I don't, so just making sure that those of us who are walkers have some kind of continual access from the back area would be wonderful.
Yeah, and we will, even for the community gardens and fields, it's definitely proposed to maintain the access for the proposal, but during construction as well, we'll, if the access is really out around a little bit more, we'll just make sure there's access to the fields during construction.
Great. Erica, was there anything you wanted to bring up? Did you have a list of things?
Yeah,
that
I
you
would like to
wanted
go through the comment letter that I prepared back in July.
Yeah.
Because that hits upon several other topics that are in our bylaws and regulations. Mark, I believe I forwarded that to you after our first hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so after I reviewed basically the application that you submitted, I came up with numerous comments after reviewing the bylaw. Let's see. So should we go through these item by item, or?
Yeah, whatever you think's the most important, you can go through them all.
Okay. Okay, so for general comments, number one, I stated the applicant shall list on the application and provide copies of all variances, permits, and other special permits previously issued by town boards or state and federal agencies, and a list of any variances or permits required to complete the proposed work in accordance with the limited business rules and regulations, section 4.4. Number two, the applicant shall prepare earth removal calculations in accordance with the limited business rules and regulations, section 4.62. Number three, the applicant shall prepare a traffic report in accordance with the limited business rules and regulations, section 4.64. The Bolton Planning Department recommends the applicant consider trips generated by emergency response vehicles to and from the assisted living facility and trips generated to and from the existing office building. 3A, currently Bolton Office Park allows residents, visitors from Bolton Country Manor to use their parking lot. Does the applicant anticipate this arrangement to continue once the assisted living facility is constructed and operational? We've obviously already discussed that. Site. Yes.
You want me to just touch base on those real quick? And
yeah, that would be great.
if you want to do that, a few sections at a time.
Sure.
Number one, about the permits and variances and applications, that we'll make sure that's everything's provided. That's existing for the site. We can provide the earth removal calculations. In general, this is a fill site. And these are, but we'll provide the calculations of the earthwork needed for the site.
So you'll be doing more filling than
Yes.
cutting. So
Yep.
where will you be filling?
Basically, in the
Rock.
footprint of the building is
Okay.
coming up a little bit.
Okay.
The rest of the parking matches into existing, so there's not too much there. On the traffic report, the initial letter I sent, we did do an ITE trip generation based on the assisted living, and it came up with a total of 160 trips per day. Your bylaw reads anything over 100, you can request a traffic report. It's over the threshold, but it is still relatively small for a development. We'd like to request to focus our efforts on the emergency vehicles and these improvements for the manor. The intersection for this office, there's a left turn already. I think a lot of the traffic out on 117 is just getting from one end of the town to the other. We're kind of requesting to stay away from a full traffic report as a result of the assisted living. That's just a request for those purposes, though, to concentrate on the walkways, the parking. We can take a look at the emergency vehicles, though, specifically. But there's a left turn lane, a right turn lane. There's maybe some improvement could be this exit. There's no striping there right now. I noticed that coming out. It's just kind of a wide spot to get out of here. It'd be nice to have a left and a right turn lane striped, something like that.
So you're kind of proposing that to use the money from the traffic study for other kind of things?
Yeah, to me, it feels like a better use of it instead of.
What do they cost generally?
It depends on how many intersections need to be analyzed from site to site. It could be from 5,000 to 30,000 or 4. It depends on how many signals you have to hit. So we prefer to use that in addressing the parking lots, the sidewalks, but that's just a request to the board. We understand the bylaws and what's required. And the last one is just working with the country manor. We discussed that everything will stay.
Okay, and then for general site layout comments, number 4, The Button Planning Department requests the applicant update the site plans to show the location of the following items: the ADA handicap accessible ramps. I don't believe they were shown on the plans at this point. You know, any signs or traffic or business signs. The dumpster location, the outdoor lighting structures, mechanical equipment, and then it sounds like the fire cistern isn't needed since you have the fire pond, but
Yep, we can work with the fire
work with the fire
department.
department on that.
We haven't
right?
sat down together yet, really.
Okay.
It's, to me, it looks like it's all weeds, or 70% of it. It'd be great to get that cleaned out.
Number 5, the Button Planning Department requests the applicant update the parking summary table shown on the title sheet to include number of parking spaces for both existing and proposed scenarios. This isn't required, but it's recommended because I think it's confusing when you're looking at our bylaw and it requires a certain square footage for parking. I think it's easier to review it if you're looking at the number of parking spaces. So I think that would be helpful. Number 6, the applicant shall update the zoning compliance table to include existing versus proposed total lot coverage, which is not to exceed 50% in accordance with the code, section 250-13B. Number 7, the applicant shall provide screening of the proposed dumpster and mechanical equipment associated with the proposed assisted living facility in accordance with the code, section 250-23G7. Number 8, the applicant shall provide bicycle parking or bicycle racks in accordance with the code, section 250-23G14. Number 9, the applicant shall provide 1 tree per 10 parking spaces for the proposed parking lots associated with the proposed assisted living facility and existing office building in accordance with the code, section 250-23G13C. Number 10, the Bolton Planning Department recommends the applicant consider maintaining the alignment of the existing driveway entrance in order to preserve the mature trees located along the edges of the drive and in the landscape islands in accordance with the code, section 250-23G8B. Number 11, the town of Bolton encourages the construction of sidewalks to connect parking areas with adjacent developments. We've pretty much already addressed that at this point, so I'm not going to continue to read that comment. Number 12, the Bolton Planning Department requests the proposed 18-foot wide gravel drive shown on the layout plan, sheet 6, connect to both existing gravel drives leading to the town property behind the project as shown on the existing conditions detail plan, sheet 3. And number 13, the Bolton Planning Department requests the applicant update the utility plan, sheet 10, with the location of the proposed electrical service.
Okay, most of those are, you know, plan changes we'll incorporate. The tree 1 per 10 parking spaces will definitely meet those requirements in these areas. We're gonna look at options on the big lot to make it a little more user-friendly too. I mean, right now, the main purpose of it is to serve the office building. But when this is reconfigured, there's a walkway that formerly served this parking area to get in the building. You know, we're gonna take a look at the pedestrian access to the lot just to make sure it's used to the fullest extent, and we'll also take a look at trees for that section. But we'll definitely meeting the bylaw on the new parking areas. I think everything else, general plan changes that we can incorporate.
And at this point, do you know where the dumpster is going and where the mechanical equipment will be located?
Most likely they'll be down in the end of the building, but we'll identify and take a look at the interior of the building better or in this area. I think there's some utility area inside the building there, so we'll take a look at that.
Okay, stormwater comments, number 14. The applicant shall provide additional erosion and sanitation controls in accordance with limited business rules and regulations, section 4.7.3.6. The Bolton Planning Department recommends establishing erosion and sanitation controls along the toe of the slope of the proposed driveway aisle at elevation 349 feet to prevent sediment laden runoff from draining into the isolated wetland. The Bolton Planning Department also recommends establishing erosion and sanitation controls at the outlets of the proposed rain gardens to prevent sediment laden runoff from entering into the existing drainage basin. Number 15, the applicant shall provide site details of the proposed rain gardens and indicate the size of riprap used on the perimeter and at the outlet in accordance with the limited business rules and regulations, section 4.81. Number 16, the applicant shall provide site details of the proposed storm scepter unit in accordance with the limited business rules and regulations, section 4.81. Number 17, the applicant shall verify whether or not rain gardens may be constructed within the Mass DEP Water Supply Protection Area Zone 1 as identified in the overall plan, proposed condition sheet 4. Number 18, the applicant shall update the operation and maintenance plan to include the manufacturer's maintenance recommendations for the storm scepter unit. Number 19, the applicant shall update the operation and maintenance plan under section existing stormwater management infiltration basin to include trimming, cutting, and vegetation along the outlet control structures with the basins.
Just a general note on this, we're currently in front of conservation as well. They've hired an outside consultant to review the project, and we're getting ready to complete they've reviewed it with comments as well. We're getting ready to complete our response. We're just, one thing I've been trying to nail down, this parking we've been talking about, just other site things. So as a result of this meeting, we plan on, and that a major focus of that is some of the stormwater stuff. So we plan on incorporating these comments and suggestions. Plans?
Okay, site plan comments. I think I'm going to just kind of skip through these. These are pretty generic comments just about the site plans. Let's see if there's anything that's important to discuss. The one thing that I thought would be very helpful for the planning board is if you submitted a demolition sheet,
Okay.
just showing where the existing pavement's going to get removed, where the proposed pavement is being added, and then understanding for the existing drainage if there's anything being abandoned or removed. It wasn't completely clear to me when I was reviewing the plans. I think that would be very helpful. Let's see. Oh, and then a landscaping plan. I don't believe that was included in the package.
Okay, we do. We have hired a registered landscape architect to prepare that. Well, if you want to go on.
And then just in terms of site details, landscaping details, if you're proposing lighting fixtures, details for those, the fence details, and any sign details.
We do have a draft landscape plan presented. The focus of it, is around the building. Based on our sidewalk, this was an area that between the parking lots, it could use some trees and things like something like maybe potentially moving the bigger trees out there and things like that. We'll continue to work on, but we do have a registered landscape architect working on a landscape plan. And walkways and things like that will be added.
Yeah, so I'd just say, outdoor light, the light fixtures, wanting to see cut sheets and, looking for fixtures that are full cut off.
Do you typically require photometric plans or just some more details on? We're generally proposing full cutoff.
I think we had a photometric plan.
The Clinton Savings Bank, they submitted that plan, but it's not required. It's not in our rules and regs.
Okay. But we'll look at lighting details.
And then on July 17th, I also sat down with the other town departments to go over this project, and some of the other departments did have some initial comments that I included in this memo. So for the police department comments, they asked, the Bolton Police Department recommends the applicant consider mitigation measures to offset the potential cost of increased public safety calls to the assisted living facility. And then they also commented that the applicant shall indicate whether or not the assisted living facility will include Section 8 housing under the Massachusetts Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. So I don't know if you haven't selected your operator yet, if you'll know about Section 8 housing.
What is Section 8?
I think it's low income housing.
Federal,
Oh,
federal low income housing. Hard to come by. Difficult to get.
Oh, okay.
It's not a slam dunk, I doubt you're
So who was,
Section 8 housing in there.
who was interested in that question?
the police department,
Okay.
they had just, asked the question, so I included it as a
Okay.
comment. And then the fire department also had just a couple of comments. The applicant shall indicate the height of the proposed overhang of the covered drop-off area of the assisted living facility on the layout plan sheet 6 to ensure appropriate clearance for emergency vehicles. And then last comment, life flight landing zone is situated towards the back of the property in the existing parking area that is to be modified. The applicant shall coordinate with the Bolton Fire Department regarding the relocation of this zone.
So we'll provide the appropriate details on the overhang, and just look into the landing zone.
Last comments? There.
Just a question, at the last meeting, there was discussion about the design review board. Has that have there been meetings yet with?
Not yet.
There has not been meetings. I think I'm gonna try to incorporate some of the things we've talked about tonight and then finally get that out. So that has not been.
You will be going through the full process with them?
Yeah.
Application process?
Two things. One, another item in the letter from the Council on Aging was to provide, we realize it would be a different provider, but the space for elderly daycare, because that's really an important thing for folks in Bolton. So I just want to keep that on the table. I think it was brought up that there might be space in the basement. I mean, I don't want to, I'm sure there's a nicer word to use other than basement. Lower level, thank you. But, to provide something, and again, it would be a different operator. And then last time, I was asked to talk to Margie about ambulance needs. And so she's here, and I just, because she and I talked, and we want to make sure that her information gets put on the table as well.
Sure.
So I just went through what we had for 600 Main Street. And we do about 25 calls a year there. I think obviously this would probably have a little bit of a higher call volume. But some of the calls that we're doing right now at 600 Main Street would probably be reduced if there's somebody there that can help them. We get a lot of,
Could you repeat that?
that we do about 25 calls a year to 600 Main Street. Obviously, we'd expect that the call volume would be higher at a facility like this. On the other hand, there would probably be some calls that if there's somebody to assist them there, that we wouldn't be called out for.
Sorry.
Let's let her finish.
I work for an
Let's let her
assisted,
finish.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, just.
Yeah, so that's all I have. I know that we talked a little bit about contracts with, anytime that there's going to be a planned transport to a hospital or a non-emergency transport, that would be done through a private ambulance service. That wouldn't be the town ambulance. But any emergency event, we would expect to pick up that call.
Okay.
I work for an assisted living facility, and very, very few of our ambulance calls are through 911. I would say 95% of them are through private contract. We contract with a company. So we generally do not use 911.
Can you identify yourself again?
I'm Mary Harvey,
And where do you live?
Bolton Country Man.
Oh, okay.
But I work for an assisted living facility in Marlboro.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the volume would be. we're not opposed to this in any way, you know.
How many units would there be?
There was 60 beds.
And so just to go back to the matter, we were asking, are there any staff there at night or during the day? It's just like independent. No
Yeah,
social
so-
worker.
Yeah, so that's some of the calls that we get, you know. They just need someone to help them.
Mhm.
And that's what we go and we do, and we don't take them to the hospital, we just go back to the station.
Okay. Sir, last one?
What level of skilled nursing is expected at this particular building? I know we're using the term assisted living, but
Unfortunately.
That's determined by the state.
Yeah, and we don't have a particular operator yet, so we're, you know.
I understand that, but you're proposing a building with 60 units or 60 beds. Are you, again, there's skilled assisted living in Northborough, which is right attached to a nursing home, and they move from one unit to the other as their health declines and their skill need increases. So the bare minimum is somebody to come in, assisted living, to help somebody with their daily chores versus somebody that's in need of healthcare providing. So I'm just trying to, where that balance is going to be.
Yeah, we'll try to have some better answers for what's gonna be in this building by the next meeting, and that type of level of question and answer. We just don't quite have, you know, we're calling it an assisted living facility at this point, but we'll try to answer those questions. A lot of those questions came up at the first meeting, and we didn't have a good answer for them. So we'll continue to work on that.
One more. We've got to move on. Yes.
Yeah, I'm Peter Ross. I represent the Public Way Safety Committee here in town, and I was a bit concerned that you just sort of dismissed the traffic study. I worry about traffic turning into busy traffic in Bolton.
No, I don't think we dismissed it. We just talked about.
Okay, well, let me have an opinion on it then, just right here. I don't think the current office building is fully staffed in terms of the number of people per square foot, is it? So it could be a lot more. And then you stated on top of that we could get 160 extra entrances and exits per day. If the people are coming from 495, like most commuting office people perhaps today, they can turn left into the building quite nicely and they can get out quite easily into the eastbound traffic. But I'm concerned if there's an increase in numbers of people approaching the new facility from Bolton, from the west, in which case, yes, they can turn in. But then when they come to get out of the building, turning left in across one line of traffic and into, say, the evening commuting traffic is going to be quite difficult.
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue for all of Main Street. It's an issue at the school. It's an issue at Wattaquatic, at Harvard Road. It's going to be an issue at the bank. It's going to be an issue at the salt box. So, do you have any ideas? You know,
I've got some ideas we can talk about when we get to the Clinton Savings Bank thing.
Okay, great.
But I think that the time to think about it is when we're planning a new building. All of those others that you've mentioned, the school and Wattaquatic, etc., are all very much existing. But while you're planning a new facility and there's an opportunity to maybe adjust the driveway or put in another turning lane, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, no, I think we need a traffic study for, you know, the whole neighborhood.
Yep.
Not this kind of piecemeal. Again, maybe we can look at this project with Clinton Savings Bank. Try and look at it together and maybe share the costs, because it's a bigger issue than just Bolton Office Park. The school is going to be growing. It's just, you know, nothing's staying the way it is right now. It's traffic will only increase going west. It's a big issue.
Yeah, we've already talked about more traffic in and out of the lacrosse field, for example, and never considered the safety aspects.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I guess I just mentioned the funky thing the state did, going from 2 lanes to 1 lane, occurs right there in front of the office park. And that's scary in the way people drive in there. There's no way they're paying attention to somebody coming across the road.
Good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We have to move on to our next item. Thank you for coming.
You mean we weren't the only ones?
No, that was very important. Lots of cars out there.
Do you need a motion to close?
Ah, yes.
We're gonna
Continue.
I would move
So-
to continue the hearing to,
October 8th or, I believe 7:30.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Mark, thank you so much for
Thanks a lot.
meeting with us before and, really working to help us figure this out.
I think the conservation is the 6th, so that'll work out well, because we'll get in front of them.
Okay. If that's too soon,
Yeah, let me know when we can.
Yeah.
yeah, we're not gonna rush you.
Trying to get this done. Okay, you got a lot of things to do. Thank you.
So our next item, we're meeting with the planning board's consultant, Fred Hamway from Hamway Engineering. I've met Fred before. Hi Fred, welcome. But we have new members and this is Eric and David. This is Fred. New members who haven't met you. And so we thought it would be good to talk about how you do things. At our last meeting, Andy was here and tried to sow a lot of doubts about, that you're overbilling him, that you're spending too much time on the site. Erica, rebutted a few of them, but a few of the comments, but it would have taken a lot of time, so she just we let some of them go anyway. So maybe, how should we do this? Maybe we can talk about how you work, you represent us.
Correct.
And you're representing the town.
Correct.
You have eyes and ears on the ground, making sure that everything under the surface is built to the specifications in the plan so that down the road when the town, or even, the people who live in the community, they don't have any surprises. So we really do, I think we really rely on you. The whole town does. But we're gonna talk about kind of what you've been doing there, why it's been taking so long, why there's so much supervision, those types of things.
And you say representative of the town, and again, the town is going to own the road. So it's going to be yours as a town for the rest of eternity, for the generations to come. The road, the utilities, detention basins, everything has to do with that. Everything outside of the lots themselves, which are the individual homeowners, but they still have using the roads along with other people, whoever might be coming through, whether it be guests or deliveries or whatever it might be. As far as number of times or the amount of inspections, the inspections I do are at random, and it's basically because if you're going to go every day at 10 o'clock or Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 o'clock or whatever time like that, for the most part you have to assume that they're going to be doing everything to the best of their abilities during that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever time frame it is. Things in construction, whether you're involved in it, know it or don't know it, they don't always get completed or done according to plan specifications and so forth. There's millions of ways to build something, and the plans are the plans, and that's what's approved, and that's what they go by. It's a lot easier in this project when they had when he had hired a contractor to build it. because, and I'll just make a comment that Andy said. He said, I want you here as much as you have to be, because I want it being, making sure they're doing it right. So that was said way back when. Anyway, but it's not an abusive type thing. I mean, I could abuse, I can go out 8 hours a day and sit in my car, machines break down and whatever. I'm not gonna do that, and I can't get out 8 hours a day. No one's gonna pay for it. He's not gonna pay for 2 or 3 times a week. He's complaining about, which ends up being, between travel time and writing a report, about 3 hours each time, which isn't a lot. When you think of what they're doing. For instance, today, is everyone familiar with the site at all as far as the plans go? Okay, so they're working in quite a few different areas even today. So just going to the different areas takes time. Some is not as accessible, some you have to walk to, some you can drive to. So it takes time just in that alone. And you have to look and see what they're doing. They are also, some of the work is taking longer because of the way it's being done. So you can stand there and observe it, and it could take 2 hours to observe a small amount of work that's being done. It could take longer. When there's paving to be done, you want to make sure that the pavement thickness is the adequate thickness of what was approved and accepted on the plans. That takes the whole time they're there. Just doing a simple thing of measuring and temperature and depth to make sure it's still a hot mix, to make sure it's a certain thickness, so when it's compacted, it's what's required, what the town has in their subdivision regulations. So those type of things take a long time. There's numerous comments that have to be reiterated again and again and again, and so forth. It's required, it's necessary, not required. It's necessary to make sure it's being done. They were putting in what's called inverts and manholes a week or so ago. They started doing it. They just started doing it, and they weren't doing it correctly. They had started one, they were finishing one and starting the second one. I saw it. There's, I don't know, hundreds of manholes on the site. So this is a new section, new area, and someone else was putting in these inverts. It was called the brick inverts. And they had to remove what they were doing and do it the correct way that's shown on the plans. It's, if you don't see those things, then 2 things happen. It gets done completely wrong, well, possibly, or a lot gets done, and then you have a debate on how much has to be removed and redone and so forth. It's not an abusive thing by any means. It's, you'll see something in the next billing, so to speak, or next time around, that he's asked me to do something else just the other day, last Friday, look into something that has to do with...
So Andy's asked you, is
right.
that what you mean?
Yes. And it's like anything, it's taken a long time. We're at 71st, I think, today inspection, or 72nd.
Yeah.
Over how long a period of time?
But it's over, it's been since
2010, I believe.
10.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important
It's
to...
come and go. There's a lot of, they're only 40% done right now, I bet you.
Yeah, if you could talk about like how Century Mill is different from like North Woods or other developments that you...
That's what interests me the most. And
I mean,
if you represent other municipalities as well, if you could compare it a little bit, is this an abnormal case in the sense of frequency? And if so, is that abnormality due to some history, some historic observations? Or does this stack up, does your frequency really stack up comparably with some of the other sites you inspect? For
This
instance,
is a large site, and it's been stopped and started. They're on the 3rd contractor right now on the project.
So that's 3rd site work contractor?
Yes, who is Andy now.
So Andy's taken it. Before, you would go and it would be the representative of a company?
Correct.
And now Andy's that person?
In the company.
Yeah.
And the construction company.
which is, what is it? That's
Well, it's coming Merchant Financial.
Merchant Financial, okay.
So initially, there was a McKenzie Engineering, just as an example. His name was Sean Brennan, who started the project. When it started on off of Spectacle Hill Road and going way back now, they put in that first 200 or 300 feet of drain pipe 3 times. Because each time it was done wrong. The structures, manholes and so forth were brought to the site and moved around because they weren't ready to put them in, and when they were ready, they had cracks in them, chips, pieces off them, and he tried to say that's how they came. And I said, well, then you should return them and get your money. You bought something new. And I'd say the same thing. I'm also, by the way, I won't hide this fact, I'm looking out for Andy too, in the sense that he's bought, when the contractor's working, the contractor has given a bid to put in what it says in the plans. If they're putting, and I'm not saying this is happening, but if they're putting in something less and charging more, in a sense I'm looking out for Andy too at the same time. That I want to put the right material, and if they bid it according to the plans, and if they're trying to shortchange it, so in a sense and that's how we understood things day one. So just as an example, that pipe took 3 times, in proportion 3 times the inspections. Just as an example. And that was day one, or year one, I should say.
Do you find that there's a relationship build up, or is if you go and everything's good, that you have to go less?
Yes.
Or if you find, every time you go, there's like 10 things that you're like, well, I have to come back tomorrow or the next day, or it like snowballs kind of. The more issues, the more time you feel.
Right, it's a relationship. If you're going there and it's being done right, you go less, and you have to assume, because you're not there, they put in drain pipe,
Yeah.
you might see 10% of it as an inspector,
Right.
unless you're there every hour. So they put in what you saw perfectly, if you want to use that term, and you have to assume everything this way and this way is being done the same way. And so you do go less.
So there's a trust factor.
Exactly, I call it a relationship, and that I'm comfortable in the way they're doing the work. We've had a lot of work that had to be redone.
Mm-hmm.
There's a list on, and I don't know if the board looks at the reports. No.
They do not.
Okay,
No.
there's every inspection has a report, and there's a list of current items for that day, and a list of past inspection items that have.
See those?
Okay, I'd love to see
But
this.
what I'm getting at is, are the past ones being done?
No.
So I don't, every time I go out, look at them again, but every other time. In the sake of minutes, it's additional time. Probably not overall, but I have to go back every week. Let's say I go twice a week, every week and look at this, it's not done. Next week I have to look at it instead of, and it's over there, so I have to go to it. And it just takes,
I mean, a typical project, not necessarily this one, but a typical project that starts from new, what triggers your visiting the site? Is it specific activities that are getting done? We've got a list here of 11 different things. These are the things that Fred wants to see. These are the things that Fred's going to comment on within his report. Or is it more a time frequency? Again, beginning of a project, typical. Is it
first, what you said first, which was the activities, and to see how those are going.
Okay.
If they're satisfactory.
And if some are unsatisfactory, if some are delinquent, it's a matter of
Going out
reviewing.
now tomorrow
The clock is ticking.
instead of Friday,
Okay.
or instead of next Monday, if I went today. And it's a matter of, because work is being done every day, every hour.
Yep.
And if it's
No, I can appreciate that.
It's
If you
bad
miss
enough,
something.
trying to tell someone, take this all apart and start all over again. And it's not an issue if there's a separate contractor, because the owner isn't feeling it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the contract, another thing with the
I mean, there's a retainage type of a motivation with the separation between the GC and the sub that may or may not exist here.
Right,
If
right,
one-
it does not
one is the
exist.
same, Sure.
There's, outside of this McKenzie Engineering, the next company that came in to play was Lopes Construction. They were there for, I just go off the top of my head, 18 months, I don't recall how long. But they had a supervisor there So they had a crew doing piping, they had another crew doing some of the road work, whatever it might be. And I just dealt with the supervisor who was there every day for the most, almost 8 hours every day. And this is not being done. Sometimes I tell the work is right then and there, but for the most part dealt with the super. And you make sure it got straightened out, whether it's wrong material, whatever it might be. There's no point person right now. Oh, there are many. Is that the other way to say it?
I think there is a point person, but whether or not he knows exactly what's going on at the site is, I think, another issue.
So that's Andy's the point person.
Is that unfair to say?
Are you talking about Andy?
Yeah, I'm talking about Andy, yeah.
Yes,
So
he is, but
he's the point person until he's not, then, there've been issues and he said it's, that wasn't my fault, it was one of my subs, like cutting down the neighbor's trees or.
But that's not, it's just like
He's
my
not taking
business, if my,
responsibility.
I don't know Matt's last name, who's just here? Div?
Oh, right then.
Yeah.
Who's he with?
Condyne?
Is he the owner?
No, he's
No.
their engineer.
Right, no, the owner of Condyne?
No, he's their,
Oh,
the resident
in-house.
Okay.
in-house.
So if he makes mistakes, it's still the owner's.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying he's making a mistake, but, the same thing, if one of any staff is not doing it right, it's not, it's them, but there's no
Yeah.
repercussions there. It's Andy's project, Andy's the owner of the construction company and so forth. But there's a number of people, I don't know, they probably don't know people's names, I take it.
I've mentioned Jaime in the past and Paul.
And Paul.
I didn't mention Ron, but.
And Paul, for instance, was, he's there to oversee the house construction. And then months ago, I said, I don't understand, Paul, am I supposed to now deal with you? He said, well, now, and he has me overseeing the site also. But that's not his job. So that changed. Hanu was doing it, this gentleman, Hanu, who's my experience knowledgeable in what he's doing in construction and site construction. But the work is, they're always changing. So the staff, you see someone and they're gone, they're not there the next week. Or I only see them one day. I don't know how many people over the past months have been working there.
So that's really challenging.
And some of them don't know, and I'm not saying from what I'm observing, I'm saying from what I'm hearing, that they haven't done this or that before. So they're learning this. And it's,
You never go there and there's always something to inspect, you're not like twiddling your thumbs on.
No.
I mean, this is like Andy,
You don't go there for a nap and then have some
Yeah.
coffee.
well,
yeah.
you really put me on the spot now. I don't drink coffee, but I go for that. No,
Yeah.
I'm not standing.
You don't show up and be like, oh, there's nothing new today.
No, no, it doesn't happen because there's always something going on.
Yeah.
And let's go back another few steps again. When I think you might have mentioned at a meeting, we have our weekly meetings, that it came out he would let me know when they were going to be doing certain things. And that,
This
do you
is
remember
when
that?
this discussion sort of first
When do you
came
think
up.
that statement came out? Roughly a month ago, 2 months ago?
It was, I think it was when I initially had requested additional funds for peer review.
About 2 months ago?
So probably about 2 months ago.
And not once have I got a call saying we're doing this work now. And at that point I said, that's fine, we'll do it that way, I need 48 hours notice. And I've gone out there, Carol's called me and I've been out a half hour later. Andy, they were paving, Andy called me and said, they're out here paving. I said, you're supposed to let me know that. And I got up and went there and didn't hold them up, especially when I can. But on the other side of it, I have never been given any notice, and if we want to do it that way, the notice has to be given, 2 days, whatever, so that we can plan it. Otherwise, but it's very hard, and believe me, I'm not criticizing it, it's very hard on the construction end to do that. Things are, on this job, it's changing daily.
Yeah, that's.
They started that water line work
and then they stopped.
How long has it been stopped?
They started, what, like maybe a month ago?
Yeah.
And
That's
they had to.
How long's that trench been open? That stone?
That's
that
been
rock
open 2
trench?
weeks now, I believe.
No, well,
3
no, that-
weeks.
yeah. You saw the pipe 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
oh, that's true, that, because we didn't have a state visit last week, oh, yeah.
And so things, the work in there stops now a little bit. Now you have to go find out where the work is. It's not a small site, you go and see, there it is. Not, just, but it now takes another half
Yeah,
hour.
it is.
Each thing. Something, it just takes that time. Getting back to the past inspections, those hay bales being removed is a simple thing, but I have to, Carol asked me, is it done? And I don't look at it but it's just, now there's another new one, just for the sake of argument here. When you go off of Road A and go onto the dirt, they've started the detention basin to the left, and all those hay bales are the same as the other one.
They need to be removed, yeah.
Right. So, it takes how long to walk out there?
It takes time.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just, are they done?
Just to walk
You can't see them
the
from a
days.
distance, you have to physically.
Do you
go
feel like if there was more communication with their plan for the day or something, it would shave 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour off your billing? Like if they communicate better or versus China?
That's one way to do it, but at the same token, at the meetings, we discuss all the past items, and if they aren't done, we just talk about them again and again and again.
Yeah.
And
So it's a bunch of things.
it shaves off a little time, but it's a necessary, there isn't any waste of time. I could be out there longer per inspection, I'll tell you right now. I could stand out there and watch him put, how much pipe do you think I should see them put in the ground?
Right.
How much do you think in feet?
But if you were working with the same site manager from the start, as you are now, and, you had a feel for them, their expertise, and there was a clear hierarchy, and things were organized, and you were getting calls at the right time. Just from my experience working with contractors, I think you'd be spending less time, you might be spending less time on site.
You've been out to the solar site?
Yeah.
Was there need to go out as many times as we did in the end? Was there any need to go as many times in the end? You were there when they said they were going to do this, this, and this.
Yeah. And
Did they do it?
No, they didn't.
And that was one little small portion, never mind what. And so this one, if they're going to do it, if things are going to get done, it does take a lot less. But let me go back to a second. How much, in your mind, how many feet of pipe do you think I should look at to be satisfied? Just off the top of your head.
Based on my history, probably.
Just in general. Just forget that, just to start the
You're
job.
going to sample. It's like he's
50
sampling
feet,
like
10 feet?
I think it's dependent on
It's trust. It's
What
trust.
is
We're in the trust.
But initially.
2 feet, if you.
But it takes them, it's taken them a lot longer to do 2 feet than other people also. So it's not just the length, but that length is taken. And then, do you remember the time you and I and Carol walked up and Rick said, can you come back and remember I set my watch?
Yeah.
And I came back, when we left it was
Lunch.
11:45. So when I came back, I waited longer and they were on lunch, which is fine. And then they started to go, but then he got, remember you didn't come back with me? And then he got a call and he stopped doing that work. So in a sense, just for that, there was probably 5 minutes I could have left. But I hung around for nothing, no one's fault. No one's fault, no one's premeditated fault. That's what happens, and they ended up not doing that work. You even asked how did it come out, remember?
I mean, it sounds to me like, he's complaining, I don't know if you watched the meeting online, but.
No, I don't.
Don't.
Flush that on everyone.
But it sounds like, he needs, if he wants what he's asking for, he needs to work with you a lot better.
Definitely. And like I said, I just told him nicely, I said, Andy, you have to give me 20, you can't call me and say I'm doing this today. I'm doing this right now, and that's how it comes, because I can't. What if I'm not around? What if I'm in Western Mass? I can't, does that mean he can't do it? He can't work that way, otherwise he can't move until I'm there. So, and that doesn't work, right?
What happens in a scenario like that? If he has a plan to do some work today, communicates it real time, no advance notice, and you can't make it, does he continue the work? Do you inspect later?
Yes.
And then if you find an issue at from 95 to 100% of the project, you question whether not to 95%.
Well, we might take that back and go back until we satisfy. When they did Road C, if you know what that is, the Road C is the first cul-de-sac off of Spectacle Hill Road. And the first, I don't remember now, this was back a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was. The material they were putting in, might have been a year ago, was not the correct material before they put down the pavement.
Okay.
And he ended up having to pull it all out.
I remember that. That's when Doug was here. So that was-
And it wasn't the correct, and they brought in the correct material, and the gravel pit people said the reason why is because their operator who digs it out, puts on a truck, took it from the wrong side of the pile. Now, if you have a pile of something, it doesn't have 3 different
sides.
Have to be different materials. And as I told Andy, and the right material is more expensive. I said, also, don't forget, they see what you're supposed to have and they're charging you for it, but they're giving you this material. So you're not even getting what you pay for, if they're charging accordingly, which they should be. But they had to tear it out. And now, it is an example of, along this road, see, with this big culvert filled 20 feet. I can't stand there and watch them fill 20 feet of building walls and watching the fill go in 20 feet, 6 inches, 8 inches, a foot at a time, compacting it. It's going to take weeks. I see what they're doing, if they're doing it correct as they when they started it.
So that's this summer, that's the big
They're doing it right now.
culvert
Right
bridge?
now, yep. Well,
And that's 20 feet?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so they need to compact that the specification, every foot.
And it's
They put
50
it
feet
down,
wide.
And then they go over
It's
it.
50 feet wide, it's not.
How big are the compactors?
They're a roller that's.
Oh, it's a big roller,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's 6 or 8 foot. But they, it takes time. In between, they have to put this geogrid material in between to hold the soil together, and it just takes time. But let's say it takes 2 weeks, full time. If I go out twice a week for 3 hours I'm going 12 hours out of 80, I'm only going to see whatever 15% of the work. So it's not, and looking at it that way, does that make sense? That is 15% a lot to be inspected? No. Right? If I get my numbers right. Is 20% a lot? 100% is probably a lot, right? But is 50 is probably a lot? So look at it that way.
It depends, to me, it depends it's like anything else, it's not just construction, it's all about history.
It is.
5% might be too much for the right. I'll put you on the spot a little bit and answer it any way you'd like to. But in your professional opinion, you've seen the site forever, you've dealt with the GC, with the owner forever. Is it ignorance? Is it cutting corners? Is it just bad communication sometimes where best intentions are there, but it's a big site to manage and you don't have the level of supervision that you have? You're trying to wear too many hats as the owner.
The last thing you said, being Andy's wearing too many hats?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. You said the level of experience or expertise, I think, was one of them.
Yeah.
That's an issue. That's a concern.
Okay.
Just an example, Carol walked over with Andy to those piles for that detention basin above the culvert, and we walked over and you saw the few things I was pointing out. What was in those piles, do you recall?
The large rocks.
And what else? Do you remember? Might not have heard it all.
I didn't. I just happened to see the large rocks.
Ever see the term, anybody looking for clean fill?
Yep.
Okay. So fill is fill coming in different degrees of material, but it's always supposed to be clean. But there's brick wall, just big in it, cinder blocks, wood. They spread it and fill it, and you don't know. how much I can only report on what I see and say.
So that would just come from some construction site or something, some demolition site or something?
This now is coming, I just found out from Boston. When I questioned some of it Friday, we went over, Andy and myself, over to the Lowe's on Route 62 where it was coming from. And today I said, well, that was not what we saw over at Lowe's. He said, no, this is coming from Boston, this material now.
It's like, you could be importing stuff from a brownfield site in Boston.
Don't we have some type of bylaws on fill? I mean, isn't there some type of...
Not to my knowledge.
No?
Well,
we have to take it out,
somebody's
we
house,
cannot
like
put it
the
in.
tires just showed up, like after a winter.
Oh, come up.
These are expensive houses, don't these people have a right to know what's
Well,
in the land?
so
We're not
that's
even-
what
we're not talking about
Fred's
the
there.
houses at all, first of all.
Oh,
We're talking about the roadway.
onto the roadway?
And the detention basins and
Yeah.
so forth. And it's different under the roads, different under the detention basins, it's different under the pipes, different materials. But just generally speaking, clean fill is clean fill.
Yeah.
There'll be different sized rocks and different grains of sand and soils and
Well, as you're saying, I mean, we have well water, there's well water there. Like, is it coming from a brownfield? Like, is there like, where's it coming from?
What I was getting at more than anything is what I do in my reports, if I haven't seen if something's installed, I say it was installed prior to the inspection, which means I didn't see it. And the only way to verify everything is to be there 100% of the time, which would be fine from my point of view. I'm good for the next few years. But it's not practical to anybody. Andy points out to me some things ago. He says, look at this site, look at this site, look at this house. I said, Andy, you're looking at the aesthetics. And I said, I understand that, the grass looks good and this looks good. But I look at the same perfection on the ground. That the right material is there, the pipes are sealed. There's the manholes you put on, and when you put one section on top of the other, there's a gasket. It's called butyl strip. It's like a asphalt rubbery thing. You put them on. I said to the person doing it, I said, well, aren't you going to seal that? He said, I said, aren't you going to put a butyl strip? He said, they didn't come with them when they got delivered. He said, I know we put them on the other ones last year when we were doing some others. I said, but just because they don't come, the plan still says that.
And that keeps the lid snug and tight.
Yeah, watertight, yeah. And like you're saying, so they don't rot because it's concrete. It fills in the irregularities, if you want to call it, and seals at the same time. So you don't have no exfiltration of water going out or infiltration coming into the soil. But it's
that type of thinking where it's, that you have to.
So do I go out tomorrow and check to see if they put them in? If they put them in, I wouldn't go out tomorrow.
Right.
So,
Sounds like, sounds like he has work to do if he wants to reduce his inspection costs, it sounds like he has work to do.
he told me, he says, you gotta let me know these things are not being done right. But they're gonna report, I'm not gonna go, how many times have you gone to the, what is it? You can probably say every time, when you've gone to the site, do you know where he was? Andy?
Most of the time, we didn't know where it
No,
was.
so I'm not,
Yeah.
at the end, run around and find out if he's could go there, could go there. He runs equipment too, so he could be gone. I don't know, and so it's in the report. But because I don't have a point person, sometimes I tell him, sometimes I tell this person Hanu, this other person Paul, and this other person Rick. And when I do, and I've stated someone or that we've talked about, I put in my report so that it's not a question of, well, we didn't know. Just say it was stated or agreed upon between myself and whoever.
On the Thursday weekly meetings, he's always there, he's seldom there, he's sometimes there.
Andy, most of the time, he's there,
We'll start at the beginning.
He's there, but he's typically they're late. We
Yeah.
have to, someone else, you know,
He was not there
either,
for some of them. He was on the site.
yeah,
And
some,
he didn't
yeah.
show up.
Right, there's been a couple of meetings where he hasn't showed up, but for the most part, someone has to end up calling him, trying to figure out where he is so that we can meet with them.
He's been there the past 2 months anyways.
Yeah.
His engineer was coming, but he's not coming. I'm being Mike Carter from GCG, but he hasn't come the past month.
To me, inspections might be a different story, but meetings are moot if he's not present. Because that whole communication, it feels like that's a big missing link to me, it feels like.
They're still important though, because Carol and I are getting to see the site. We're talking with Fred. Fred's doing the inspection, so it's a one-on-one
Well, that's what I say,
with
the
Fred.
inspections, there's value there.
So the meetings are important in terms of the town's review of the project, I think.
But they're always a set time.
There's a set time every week.
So
yes.
he's not
So it's not
showing
like he
up.
doesn't know that.
He's
we're-
there.
He's not making it
on
a
the land,
priority.
usually.
Okay,
It's not that he's out of town or...
just doing X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
Again, wearing a bunch of hats.
We usually have to get someone or one of us, myself, find him.
Chase him
We're all
down.
set.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you could forward those reports,
I will.
probably good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All-
Yeah. No, Fred does a fantastic job. I want to say that.
I mean, we're
And
only...
you have, what, 40 years of experience? I mean, you know so much about construction, and it's been extremely helpful.
Well, I've learned by being on these sites.
Whenever I have a question,
I learned how to do my own plans better, so that they're not around gaps during construction. You learn from everything usually. But about getting back to the inspections, they're only, well, there might be a lot. They average, normally speaking, they average with the report and travel time about 3 hours each time. So it's usually 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
Just without special exception of paving, of when the wall was being there. Oh, just an example, when the wall was supposed to be, do you remember, on a Tuesday, it was coming right after Labor Day. So I was also coordinating with GZA who did the wall review. Even up till Monday afternoon, and then, no, it won't be there, it's gonna be there Wednesday. So are we putting it in Wednesday? I'll call you Wednesday, and this was Paul, the other person. Ended up, they had to other things, they weren't gonna do it till Friday. So Friday we get there, myself and GZA, and we did stand around because they weren't ready to do it. And they were waiting for GCG to come and stake it out, which they had done previously. In the end, they weren't coming back. They were supposed to take those stakes and utilize them. And so now it was 1 o'clock. We got to 9 something. Because no one could get a hold of GCG. So there was the question you had before. Yes, that was standing around doing nothing. So then they started putting it at 2 o'clock, and we were there till about 5, and they needed myself and GZA helped them. I mean, you put in these big structures, and not enough people. And they're on a crane, and you're trying to line straight things into an arc, make a nice. And the first row is important because then everything has to line up as perfectly as possible, so everything else will fall into place after that. But so that took a whole day, 7 hours. I figured, I don't remember exactly. So there are these exceptions. But that was one of the only ones I remember where we had to actually stand around waiting. Getting back, way back, and might have been 2012, Road B. Let me go back. We hadn't been, work had stopped because of, I don't know if you remember, did he owe tax? Did he owe something to the town? And they weren't.
Sounds right.
In the summer, went from the spring to the summer.
It happened a couple times. I don't remember what the season was.
Next thing I know, I went up. I happened to be in the area, so I drove up, and they're paving the roadway. To my knowledge and inspections, I hadn't inspected anything on that road. They've been working for months. This was October or something. Andy, this is when Lopes was there. Andy thought Lopes was calling me. Lopes thought Andy had called me. And my comment was, you've seen me do reports, been out there every other day, and I haven't been out for a while, no one saw any reports. 3 people in Lopes got reports, their managers and so forth. I said, wasn't there a question saying, where's Fred? And they paved it. I said, you can't pave it. I said, we're paving, and I wasn't staying that day, but I never saw the gravel. They ended up having to dig up various strips and cut the pavement and dig it up, and Harold was with me, and we inspected it that way, and at one end we had to cut it back when they continued. That just, I don't know how to relate it to what you might do for work, but you haven't seen someone in a while, you might question
Yeah, no.
why,
I get it.
if they've been there too often. How about that one, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they haven't seen me, and I called Jenny all the time. She says, no, they haven't, so they started. No one knew they even started working again.
So I remember
So-
that they had to cut trenches
Yes, three or
in
four
the
of them, I think.
asphalt to like look at the horizon, like 12 inches
Yeah.
of compacted fill,
And the end of it wasn't,
how much asphalt, what were the other
And
things?
it was acceptable or it was not acceptable?
something near the end it wasn't. Harold's wanted to tear the whole thing up and do it all over. And we came to an agreement to do it this way. And Lopes was a good firm. Why I wasn't, and Jenny didn't even know that they were working all that time. For 2 or 3 months, I don't know how long, 2 months. But that's,
How often is Harold going out?
he doesn't go.
I don't think he goes very often.
Okay.
Yeah.
He got involved in it because it was, well, I say it's his road. That's why I called him about it.
That is, yeah.
And it shouldn't be anymore, but he looks like he's gonna own it for more than longer than the rest of us, right?
Great.
We'll all be gone and he'll still be there.
Fred, thank you for coming in, that's really helpful.
It's not abusive, and if you feel it is, you let me know, of course, but it's, matter of fact, it's very, for the amount of work to be done, it's not a lot of inspection time.
Yeah, no, it's just important to have you come visit us once in a while.
Sure.
I haven't seen you in
Yeah, I
a long
agree.
time, and, you know, we get a lot of spin, and everybody backs you up, and,
Yeah.
you know, we know.
Fred's had to handle a lot of confrontation on that.
Yeah, no, that's the, you know, that's the part is, you know, I just know how many people have been kind of upset in this many-year process, and I came in very late, but I've seen a lot of people, you know, at their wits' ends having to do with this project. So thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, I understand his way. I'm trying to get it so it's, everything's done and no one's getting beaten. I mean, he's paying less, if you want to think of it this way, because he's not paying an outright contractor with all the skill levels.
Mhm.
But in my opinion, it's taken longer, so you end up paying not just me, his own workers.
Yep.
But there's new workers. There's a turnover.
Mhm.
So it's him prosecuting the site development with his staff pushing buttons.
Say that again?
There is no subs. There are no subs
No,
today
there are- no, there
on
aren't.
the site component. Okay.
And his staff is new to him. These aren't people that have worked for him for years. They're new to, since this started.
Okay.
And there was a person I only saw once there. There's, well, more than one person that's only been there 2 weeks, and I don't see him again. And someone else is there.
And I think it's important to understand too, right now at this point, because of the wetland conference, not only do we have Fred, but we have DZA, and DZA is expensive. So, for example, the last invoice that we paid for $15,000, I believe $7,000 of that was DZA's time for review of the.
6,200.
So, if you think of it that way too, we're paying for 2 consultants at the moment.
And if I can take some more of your time, you probably heard a lot about the review of the culverts and the walls not being done in a timely manner. He had 4 wall consultants over that time period designing it, and 3 culvert consultants.
So this is a 20-foot concrete masonry unit wall with, is that right?
No, they're 4x8 pieces, is that what you're saying? This one ends up being 5.
What's the full height of the retaining
20
wall?
feet or so.
So
But they're all
you've seen those like big walls
Yes.
by Lowe's and Hudson.
Correct, yeah,
They're
correct.
building that, and then they're putting that geotextile behind it. So it's That's a huge.
But what happened, just give you an idea, I don't want to give you, waste all your evening, but just to clarify, Erica knows this, but the first 3 reviewers, when their comments were given to them and they wouldn't respond, just like Mark here saying, I'll take care of that, they wouldn't, they didn't. They come back with the same thing again. And make long story short, the 4th wall design was in there, and at that point, the structural engineer I had said, I'm not dealing with this. He couldn't understand why this couldn't get done, and he wasn't going to waste his time anymore. And he walked away, and that started the whole thing. So GZA was brought in, which Andy has voiced his opinion on paying a lot of money for it.
Yeah,
right?
we did hear that.
But in a phone call, when I was right there, he talked to Mary Hall and said, charge me whatever you need to get it done. You have to charge me premium, you're all sitting there. So, but that's aside the point. But GZA, this 4th engineer also said, well, I don't do that part. Right in the meeting with Andy, myself, and GZA. It was, they're manufacturers of walls, and they have in-house staff engineers who are only looking at it from their perspective. They had to then sub out another part of it called the global stability design that was asked for from the first designer. And GZA pushed it, and Andy was right there, and he said, get it done. The guy had, his wall designer had to bring someone else in to do that global analysis, and I can't explain to you. On the culvert design, the same things happened till the 3rd designer was GCG, and the comments came back very similar to the first 2 sets, and GCG changed it, and it got approved in 2 submittals, where 2 others couldn't get it approved at all. But that was with the same review engineer initially. It's a matter of his wall and color designers were not addressing the concerns, just like if Mark says, oh yeah, here's your list, I'll come in next month, and nothing's changed.
Yeah. So that was how.
You know, if we had on the 3rd wall designer, we actually had a conference call, and he said, understand exactly what you need, what you want, this and that. And he's putting big block walls to try to design the little Versalock walls that are this big. After saying, I know what you need done, and we said, that's not it. And that took a lot of time and money.
Oh, yeah, we did hear.
Right, but that's the truth of what happened.
Yeah, no, that's good. Good to hear.
And his only is, I wouldn't set up a meeting with everyone, because I said, we get the next set of comments, they should be able to take care of them, they wouldn't. And in hindsight, they should have. They actually did it with GZA in this last one. 2 meetings for a couple hours each, sat there with the person, said, change it. Okay, I will change it. You know, really, it was...
Which is really not necessary, but...
Not necessary. What about who's going to take care of it? Well, we don't do that. You have the designer, what do you mean you don't do that? So we end up, GCG is going to take that responsibility during construction. We don't do that. Someone has to from the owners. Right? That's what happened in that.
Oh, very frustrating. Great. Fred, thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
Thanks, Fred.
Nice to meet
Good to meet you.
people and all.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, we'll continue on.
Yes,
the way it's
please
going.
continue on the way you're doing
Now they can
it.
put a face to the name, because I feel like I say your name all the time. For good reason.
But yeah, I don't remember. Did Jennifer used to send us those reports, Fred's reports, or not?
I can certainly start
We-
doing that.
Get some reports when, like, various hearings or meetings or whatnot would be coming up. I don't think we regularly get them.
I can send those along.
Good. Well, thanks for coming
You're
in.
more than welcome. Thank you
I
guys.
really appreciate that. Good to see you.
I think I need to get going. Is there anything important to sign or anything, or?
There's,
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, we'll
Good
see you.
night.
Good night.
Sign the Paragon and the subdivision approval extension.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Did we talk about the bank at all today?
Clinton Savings Bank was our next
Yep,
item of
it
business.
is on
for site
our
plan
next,
approval.
we're way over, I'm sorry, we've kept 2 people. Eric has to leave, but we still have,
So this
we're not voting on anything.
I can say 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Oh, you saw 3. So the site, so you're just going through the site plan?
So basically, Dave made a submission to the Board of Selectmen for site plan approval. As part of that process, they require advice from the planning board. So basically, we need to talk about site plan approval tonight, and I need to get your feedback so that I can send it off to Board of Selectmen. So.
Yeah, I think I do, because my wife is like, probably needs help.
It's D-Day, right?
Well, it's like 2 or 3 days away.
Is
so
there anything you
Good luck.
wanna say about Clinton Savings Bank in terms of the package?
Not right now, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, I
We'll
just,
say
I don't want to leave
goodbye.
it hanging this
We'll
late.
say goodbye to Eric.
Yeah.
His wife is pregnant,
Yeah.
very pregnant,
very.
about to give birth. Hey. We wish you the best.
All right, so do you guys want to take a look at the plans?
Yeah. So,
Are you able to take a look at the package before the meeting? So we'll agree.
so,
We can come up with just sort of a general list of any comments, or, you know, if generally you approve the project, or any site plan
I
related
can
issues.
jump in
Sure.
if nobody else has anything.
It's not really site plan, but my hot buttons, similar to the assisted living, are mobility, and to the extent they can start to split some costs, and traffic studies, and to the extent they can split some costs. 2 kind of big global plans, or global
Yeah,
ideas, but not
connected.
that much specific.
Right, pedestrian mobility
Yep.
is a concern. Now, they did do a traffic study.
Okay.
So,
Is that in there?
That's
I
the
have it
executive
here.
summary.
And I did provide a copy of the executive summary.
You want to listen to this? No, that's okay.
Oh, you have it. You did that.
I just made a copy of the executive summary in your packet tonight so that you can read it and understand sort of what their conclusion was in terms of impact to traffic.
Do you want to just go over that?
Basically, it's a drop in the bucket. There was 22,000 trips during the week, and this will be like an addition of 50, or something like that. Either that or it's just a wash entirely.
Yeah, they were it didn't seem like they were getting at, they didn't tackle the issue of what does it do to traffic to have people pulling off and pulling back on. They were just saying, I guess the trips on the
Well-
road weren't.
They discussed the trips, but they also did discuss traffic pulling in and out. So under the executive summary, if you read the paragraph that says Main Street existing driveway and exit driveway, I can read it. It says left turns into the existing driveway along Main Street will remain at level of service A with or without the proposed relocation project. The existing left turns onto Main Street will remain at a calculated level of service F conditions with or without the proposed relocation project. However, since there is an existing traffic signal located immediately east of the project site, gaps in the normal traffic flow are created that would reduce the calculated delay for the left turns onto Main Street and improve the resulting level of service. Which is, I'm not sure is a
That's
valid-
time dependent, I would
yeah.
suggest. There are no gaps at certain
Like
times a
at
day.
noon, it would be fine, but
5 to 7.
So understanding what level of service means, A is best at this worst case scenario. And it relates to the average control delay, seconds per vehicle. So if you have a level of service A, a vehicle is waiting anywhere from 0 to 10 seconds. And then if you kind of works down from A, B, C, D, and F, and at level of service F, a vehicle is waiting greater than 50 seconds to pull out. So that's sort of the theory behind that. So they're saying that pulling in isn't the issue, it's pulling out and going left
Left.
onto Main Street.
That's the
That's
big
gonna
issue.
be the problem.
Sure.
So, and it's a problem now, and it will be once they relocate, but they're not proposing any mitigation for it.
So
But then basically they're saying the reason why they're not proposing any mitigation is because of the traffic signal.
well, I guess what I'd like to know, like, what mitigation could they do? And maybe Mary, you can,
Well, unfortunately, we lost Peter, who had
Sorry.
a whole.
I'm really sorry.
And last year, the state did an audit, road audit for that interchange. And Peter had, you know, everything highlighted that he was going to bring concerning increase in retail along that corridor. We discussed it tonight at Public Ways, and short term, they need a turning lane. Long term, Peter came up with this brilliant idea of having a service road that would accommodate the three houses. Similar to what you have at the Country Covered, where you have, now I know it's a driveway, but you come in and, you know, you've got it's one building, but you have your different businesses, and then you can exit out another way. But that's going to be a serious, especially for people going westbound. They can get into the bank, but during commuting hours, they will not be able to get back.
so, yeah, so the turning lane means kind of like in Stowe, so you have a lane where traffic can turn
could-
either direction.
Yes.
You can sit your car there and wait.
Yeah. And they have one
That comes still
for
with all the
the
concrete stuff in the middle.
the
too.
Bolton Country Manor, there's a turning lane. I mean, you might need a turning lane going the entire length of 117, the lights, but they're gonna need something.
But would that be worse than turning right out of the existing bank location? I mean, it's essentially the same, right?
Right.
I mean, it's no
Yes.
worse, it's just a
Yeah.
different side of the road.
So now it's what I've heard with the new lane is that it's very dangerous to pull out of the bank and pull out of the existing bank and go
East?
east. Because it's two lanes
Too
of
much
traffic
crossover.
coming.
Yeah, okay.
So it's hard to look out, to cross two lanes to get.
Actually, that's what I mean, left, yeah.
And what is happening with those two lanes, if you're going west?
It's a
and
racetrack.
I've experienced this. If you're in the far right lane, it seems to be the objective of cars to the left of you to go as fast as they can.
Other way
to
around.
get
If you're in the
right
left, it
to
happens
the
to me
front.
on the right all the time. Oh, yeah.
Or if you're.
So you've got some pretty fast-moving vehicles
Yeah.
right
That's true.
where they're going to be putting this bank. So yeah, those extra lanes have really complicated that whole area. So I think that, you know, that traffic, if they come up with no solutions, I think, I mean,
So.
there may be accidents, you know, as a result of.
So what the planning board has ability is to hire a consultant who will look at the figures, but it just seems like if we're gonna go through that process of hiring somebody, we need to hire somebody who has ideas. Because just saying
It's a
like,
problem.
just saying, having a graph and saying A, B, and C, and D is just not gonna help us. It's gonna be somebody who can help us redesign that area and tell us how that design's gonna help us. 'Cause-
I would recommend that. And you made a point earlier with the Bolton Office Park, how if they could combine
Yeah.
costs and work with Clinton Savings Bank, because I really think you can't deal individually with each of these developments. I think you gotta look at it as a whole.
But also, you know, there is, you know, it's kind of cynical, but I wonder, can we do anything? And,
You can, and that area you can widen, you can put in lanes. I mean, you have that ability there.
mhm.
And that's probably what they would need to do. It's just so close to the interchange, so that's the problem.
Yeah, especially with Clinton. Not quite as much with Bolton Office Park, but with the.
But you also
it's right
have the
there.
vet, so you've got another business, and that house on the corner eventually
Yeah,
will
right.
end up being something at some point. So, yeah, it's,
Yeah, I guess James brought up like, how is it different, the bank on one side and the other, and I just, I think they're moving there and to attract more
I guess they hope
traffic.
to get more traffic.
ATM, it's right there, you don't have to like go way
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
It's a real easy pull off before you get on 495 to get some cash or, I mean, as long it's not so bad as long as they're getting it on their way east and they're going east when they come out. It's just
Depending on how far west you're going, you could just stop at Bolton Orchards and come
That's
out onto
true.
110 and make a signalized left to continue on your way out to Lancaster.
Mhm.
And the world isn't ideal, but sometimes you have to adapt. Like one of the things, I can't think of an example right now, the Route 9 keeps popping in my head, but they're at the Jersey barrier down the whole entire lane, so I'm sure that's not it, but there's a road, you're trying to pull a left and it's just not happening. Like people will come and then they'll stop, but then those folks and they just keep taking the turns and I'm trying to make a left, but you know what? I'm gonna take a right, I'm gonna go pull in the next left because I'm only going across one side now I can make a right back up.
Is that a
It's not
solution?
ideal, but
Is that a solution? No left turns
alternating
between
traffic? I
No,
do that.
no
I'm just
left
saying,
turns between
sometimes
like
you gotta
8 and
work with what you
10
got.
and 3 and 7. Is that
Yeah.
you see that in cities in
Well,
Cambridge?
Sudbury has
You would
one
have
road
to
specifically that I know of near the center that it's local traffic only this way during the morning hours and that way during the evening hours, just because it's a nice cutoff to get around that light at 27 Concord Road.
Well, see, unfortunately, 117 is a minor arterial road, according to the state.
Yeah, well, this is like a side neighborhood
It's not like a local
road,
back
yeah.
road
Yeah.
that you can put restrictions on it.
We
like
do
that.
need somebody, a creative consultant to look at.
I think
to
that's a
look
good
at.
idea. I think that's probably the first step moving forward is let's hire a consultant, have them review the traffic study, and then, like you said, offer up some ideas, just concept level ideas of what potentially could be done there. I think that should be step one.
Has a traffic light ever been considered? I mean, that would slow down the continuous stream of traffic, give people opportunity to make left turns. I think that's part of the challenge with 117 is there's no break in the traffic.
A light where?
Like on What Aquatic, I was thinking.
Yeah, oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, it would help What Aquatic, but it would also break up the continual stream of traffic. And I don't know what, it would make it easier to make a left turn because traffic would be stopped.
Yeah, it's just gonna back up.
Well,
It'll be back up on the highway.
we need somebody with some really good ideas because I don't feel like I understand how you could make this work.
I think the other part too that we need to take into consideration are the scales of these projects too. I think we don't want to burden the applicants so much that it's not effective for them to make these, push these projects forward. I think that, maybe it's,
Especially this parking, it's really nice to see this level of cooperation.
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
It's
was
amazing.
very impressed with how much they were accommodating.
Yeah.
all of these.
And it's, maybe it's similar to what we're doing with the pedestrian mobility where we've set up the account and we're getting money in lieu of. So maybe rather than asking them to make this tremendous improvement, to 117, we get money that's appropriate to the scale of the project and we start building a fund to eventually someday make that improvement. I think that's something to consider too. Once we hire the consultant and kind of get concept level of what could work in this area.
So typically it's, the developer pays for those improvements.
Well, if it's
Some
in the
project.
bylaws, then they have to. If it's not there, then you're just basically going on their goodwill if you request it of them.
Okay, well,
Am I right on
If we
that?
could get a
Well,
shared
no, you can tie it
consultant.
to the special permit, right? I mean, you can say, as a piece of the special permit, here is the
think-
mitigation monies that we're requiring, put it in a fund, and we address it as a town.
I think if
I
a consultant comes up with something that there's a lot of support for,
Yeah.
then I think we can push on it in many different ways, but I think otherwise we just have this conversation where everybody kind of says yes, that could work, or no, but it just has to be something compelling. But this is the problem for Bolton, and it's just gonna there are just gonna be more kids going to the school,
Yep.
more everything, and more cars commuting to Lancaster and beyond.
My westbound ride on 117 ends at East End Road.
I would worry too about what is going into the salt box, because if it is something that
Yeah, it's all connected, yeah.
if people really want to get to it, then you've got the added traffic problem.
What are you hearing? What are you hearing
If we
about
make the town
CBS?
I've heard
undesirable as
CBS,
possible,
now-
then nobody travel.
CBS has been at every site, the name has come up, but
So if we could get a consultant to work
I will.
on both of them, just to
Yeah.
talk to both groups about hiring somebody, that would be
Yeah, and
great.
the data that was provided for Clinton Savings Bank may be sufficient to
You're on
review
TV,
both.
dear.
Okay,
I'm not sure, they would have to tell us that, but, so I'll move forward with that before the hearing.
okay. And so just in terms of, I just have some issues
Yep.
about, I think there's hi James, I think there's a little too much branding on the building. There are 4 to 5 signs on the building. I think most buildings, like if you look at Murphy Insurance, they have a street sign with a light, and then they have a sign over the doorway. That's kind of typical of more recent, kind of after the sign bylaw went in. And so this building has a nice street sign, that's great. And then they have a sign over the door, the front door. Then they have a sign, at the entrance to the bank. And they have a big sign on the side of the bank. And then they have a smaller lit sign on the ATM machine. The sign on the street and the 2 signs on the side of the building are both lit. I guess is that in here? Where's So anyway, I guess my comments to the Board of Selectmen are, these are the signs on the sides with the lights. I think 2 signs is enough, and they need to pick which one, they have their street sign obviously, and.
2 signs on the building is enough?
No, 2 signs for the
Overall.
project. I mean, they can keep the one on the ATM machine that's lit, but I just, I think over the doorway, on the side gable, at the side door, I think they need to pick, have a sign on the street and one on the building that's lit.
So in other words, people see the sign, they pull in, they walk up to the bank, they see the sign, and then they go inside and forget which bank they're in.
I think that
Or
sign
maybe they
by
forget
the
on the way
door,
to the ATM.
Forget on the way to.
but it's just a lot of,
Bad memory
it's a
too.
lot of signage, it's, the whole idea is, is that it looks like the bank moved into a house, so.
And brought all their
They
bank
shouldn't
branch
be like
signs.
stamping it all over.
And what about the one that's on, over the front door? Do you have any issues with that one?
Well, I think they need to, that's one of their ones on the building. So they have their street sign, and I just think they need to pick what's their most
Okay.
important one. I'd say, by the front door, but if they
So
want.
one's street sign and one on the building.
In the ATM.
The
Yeah,
lit
the
one
ATM.
on the ATM, that's fine, but it's just,
Okay.
Are they neon? No, they're lit.
these are all gonna be lit from above. I'd also say that the street sign, should be lit from above rather than
I think that's
below.
what they're intending.
Okay, it's not shown.
Oh, it's not shown that way? 'Cause when they went through the design review board process, they talked about lighting it from above, but maybe not.
I don't see it, but maybe it's
Okay.
there and I
Okay.
missed it in the text.
I can make that as one of your comments, lit from above.
Yeah. So I think that's my big kind of site plan review comment for that. I mean, we're gonna do a whole thing with them, but they just need kind of an over.
So you're okay with the parking layout? Generally speaking, you are okay with the parking layout, how the traffic flow, the traffic pattern is one way through the site?
With my rudimentary, oh yeah, I mean, that's
In the fine print, it says non-illuminated.
okay. I mean, if it's not illuminated, that's even better.
Oh, interesting.
But
Double-faced exterior sign, cabinet is sign comp, commercial wide body, non-illuminated, blah, blah,
Maybe.
blah, blah, blah.
Maybe they refer to the fact that it's not backlit,
right.
but I'm not sure.
Lit from above's fine. So.
Check, compare the fine print on some of the.
But no, the one way in and the one way out, that's good. They did a good job on the overall package. I think as part of the special permit process, that things will go over in terms of the grading and the wall detail. They're putting in a 3-foot wall. And just some of the smaller light fixtures I want to know more about, but the pole lights are, full cutoff. I do want to know what their light schedule is, but I
Yeah,
don't think
sure.
that's, when are they going to be on and off? Or
Yeah, and I've already
dim?
conveyed that to
Okay.
Crowd Savings Bank, so they're gonna get you all that information.
So is there any other areas of site plan review that,
So in terms of disposal, they're gonna be taking their disposal off-site, there's no dumpster, so that's
that's
good.
great?
Open space is kind of what it is, basically it's towards the back where the septic's going.
Well, I would just, in terms of having open public space, that's what I would call the sidewalk.
They're doing, they do have a landscape plan in there, and there's quite a few landscaped areas, and they worked with the design review board on the number of plantings, so they've really, I feel like they've gone above and beyond on that, any change that the DRB requested they made to that, so.
So in terms of protecting the street trees during construction, that's something we can work on
Sure,
later.
yep,
Okay.
because I think there is a note in there about protecting the one tree, I'm not sure about the two in front, but,
Yeah, there is a note. It's
Yeah.
it's the two in front that are really important, and it's also, not just protecting the bark, but to the drip line,
okay.
putting fencing up so
Okay.
contractors aren't parking on the routes.
Do you want me to add that as a comment to site plan review as well? Or, I guess that's more planning board.
That's more of us.
So signage, lighting, fencing, there's some fence details in there.
Mhm.
You're okay with those? It's really about it for site plan review, so.
When do they want to demo?
They want to start, I believe, late fall. Pretty much after they get their final approvals, they're gonna start construction.
So in terms of the grading, you didn't have any issues, like how much they're bringing the grading up and
They're
back?
bringing it up 2 feet. They provided earthwork calculations, so I was okay with that.
Okay.
They need to bring it up for specific reasons, so I think there's, well, the septic, obviously, and then from what they indicated at the DRB meetings, there's high groundwater, so for the stormwater system, they needed to raise it slightly to get that underground infiltration system in. So, and I've done a pretty thorough review already of their stormwater. I don't think it's necessary that we send that out, but again, that's up to the board. I did provide my initial comments to all of you so that you can kind of see where I'm at this point with my review. So you'll see there's some pretty minor comments about stormwater and site layout. And very similar comments to what I had for
changes.
Hold on, I'll have this
Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Pleasure.
Was there anything that jumped out at you?
Let's see, this was a comment actually that was made by the DRB, and it's still sort of out there, so I added it as one of my comments, the close proximity between the underground propane tank and the well, right next to each other, so we just basically asked them to do a little more research to make sure that they're meeting the required setbacks, and that's not gonna be an issue, and then bicycling.
So that's all gonna be in the front, right? When you
Yes.
pull in,
Yeah, and it's gonna be hidden. They've done a good job of screening everything.
so when you pull in,
Yeah,
there's
it's
the
right there.
well
And the tank
and
is right next to it.
underground,
Yeah.
and that's the tank that's for the generator or for,
I suppose
so it's right there's the well and there's the huge propane submarine that's buried. And somehow
for
they're gonna
gas.
shrub it up and hide it.
So I don't know if that's for heat or, but they show a gas line to the building, so.
So you've asked them to see if they can find another location for that?
Not asking for another location. I just wanted them to verify that that's appropriate and, you know, an okay location for both of those items.
How are they hiding it? Rocks and bushes?
Yeah.
And so if somebody veers off, they're just gonna like hit them when they're close to the road, but I won't get into that. Great.
Yeah, so, all right. Are there any other comments for site plan approval, or that's pretty much it?
Yeah, on the first page here, I found 4 typos,
Okay.
and then there's another one somewhere else. I'm not sure what the other
Did you say
is.
typos?
Typos.
Are you saying Erica's typos?
No,
or-
not Erica's. I didn't note any in Erica's output.
Oh, good.
And he would have chosen.
Yeah, it's I'm like a Rain Man with typos. I don't,
Oh,
I
that's
can't
good.
type any better, but I can spot a typo from
Nice.
across the
That's-
room.
That's good.
I tipped off an engineer once, he brought one of these in, and I'm like, hey, yeah, those letters are transposed, and it's over there too, you should fix that, and he's just like,
So what do we have, what's our last bit? We have something to sign?
Okay, yes, 2 things to sign. And actually, I just had, I have you signing it, Jonathan, on behalf of the board. So, did everyone get a
Good to have
chance to
some
review
witnesses.
the
Taking a fall.
the special permit for Paragon? I heard back from some, but not all, so I wanted to make sure that everyone's happy with it. Okay, so
That's
those
what I'm
copies.
signing?
That's that, and then I have the extensions for the subdivision approval on.
Did anything jump out at you on this?
For that
Nervous.
special permit?
Yeah,
Well, I wrote it, so.
okay.
so of course it's perfect.
No,
Right?
that's not what I meant, there wasn't anything that. No, I used the
So-
SIC card request special permit as my template and then just modified it to.
With the date? It's the 10th?
Mhm.
So I guess we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it.
You're just signing the CME too, or is that what you're doing?
That's just Jonathan.
Okay.
What? Something
Keep
else?
signing.
The extension that we had talked about at the last meeting.
You can turn that off now. Great, we have some privacy. Now what do people really think?
Well, I spoke to 4 different people since we last met and asked the question, is Andy as big of an asshole as everybody tells me he is? Everybody said without hesitation, yes.